Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel every day for the month of October, watch a horror movie, and discuss it. Today, we are discussing the film The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was released in 1974 and was directed by Tobe Hooper. I am your co-host, Alec.
And I'm Eric, and with us is a special guest, Joey Talluto. Joey, welcome to the Wheel of Horror podcast.
Gentlemen, how we doing?
You got a good one, Joey. All right, so don't blow it. You know, this is a good horror movie, so we don't want you doing, eight-legged freaks next wheel, okay? We want you on a good one.
I'm not feeling the pressure at all.
Joey, what's your kind of like history with this movie? When did you see it? Like, what made you like this one?
Wow. So, okay, you guys can cut me off at any point because I can talk all night about this friggin' movie. I saw this in junior high. Pretty young to watch this movie, but in retrospect, I think about one of my teachers was really cool to have like a film studies class, and he showed us all these cool movies. He showed us this, and I remember just being scared shitless.
You watched this in school.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, man.
Jesus.
Teacher, Mr. Jones. Yeah, like now that I think about it, this guy, I don't know what he was doing in front of, young minds for fucking showing this movie, dude. This movie's fucking like crazy.
It's like, okay, today, kids, we're going to watch Citizen Kane, and then we're going to go from there, and we're going to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974.
I'm going to throw on porno. I mean, some Simpsons episode.
It's a family dinner movie.
Yeah, and we all had accents. It's just.
Yeah, I know. I don't know where it came from.
I saw it in junior high. I was obviously really scared, but then I watched it again in college, and I digested it more, and it was still really scary. So then I watched it again this morning because I knew I was going to be coming on the podcast with you guys, and I mean, man, it is fun. I mean, it's 10 out of 10. I mean, it is really, really horrifying, and I really think it stands out amongst one of the greatest horror films ever made. And like after watching it, I did a lot of background, studied a lot of the history of it, and like in the 70s with the Manson family. When the whole Manson family, Charles Manson incident happened,
the Manson
murders,
yep.
and like the Summer of Love was over. And dude, they really actualized that type of like murder. And I think because it was shot so guerrilla, it really had that impact. And it was independent film. And like, dude, you've never seen any character or monster in a film where it's like, I mean, it's real homicide, murder, It's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the films you guys go over is like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, and all those are great, stylized films. But this is like,
there's no supernatural
element to it, and it is real homicide, murder. The way it's acted, the way it's shot, that was the first of its kind.
Yeah, this came out 4 years before John Carpenter's Halloween, so it's like it was.
Well, Halloween was considered independent film, and that was the only film that beat out this film. Yep. For independent filmmaking in the box office. So, I mean, you asked me like my impression. This was the third time seeing it, and I was still on the edge of my seat, goosebumps, sweating.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it this morning, and then I went to work, and I was in the car, like, freaking got the shakes.
The whole movie sticks with you the rest of the day. It really does.
Yeah, Alec, what's your takeaway from this movie? Like, what did you think when you were finishing watching it?
I saw this probably the first time with you, Eric, when we were in, I want to say probably middle school as well, maybe like 12 or 13.
Yeah, we were a little too young.
Really messed me up. I don't think I watched it again until college because I was like, it made me feel so gross and just gritty. And yeah, a lot of things you were saying, Joey, just it has a grit to it. And I watched it again in college, watched it a few times since, and it's a movie where it's like The Exorcist and there's a couple movies that in the back of my mind, I'm like, they're so good and they're so scary, but I don't know if I can watch them as often as I like because they kind of like leave me feeling gross. Like I want to take a shower almost. Mm-hmm. The one thing I just want to say that kind of what you said, Joey, too, and Eric a little bit, is this movie coming out in 1974. It's after Psycho. It's before Halloween. It's kind of like that way of bridging the gap between those, like, we're introduced to Psycho and the gore and stuff like that, and then Halloween's where it really gets ramped up in the 80s and all that stuff. But this is kind of like this in-between period where it's like, okay, so we're going hardcore now. The chain is just off and we're going nuts.
Yeah. And that speaks a lot to that kind of that explorative, that exploring kind of time in the 70s. They call it the golden era of movie making, and it was really just like a pivotal time
to reinvent for sure. It was all reinventing.
People in American cinema have never seen anything like that. Not even just American cinema, dude. Just like in the world, like this was banned in New Zealand. This was banned in many countries, Australia.
Germany, Sweden, I think. I think a whole bunch of countries it was completely like you're not going
Yeah,
to see
they
this.
released it like it took like 15 years to like actually release it again into theater. I think they saw like a final 35 millimeter cut or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up the theater because my reaction watching this, I never saw this in theaters, and I'm
No.
thinking what it must have been like to see this in a dark movie theater. Just the opening disturbing intro of the photos in
Mm.
a dark theater flashing like that. It's intensely disturbing. This whole movie
The
is terrifying.
images to piggy off your point, Eric. Yeah, the images really just stand out. I mean, you just spoke about the opening shot, Alec. I wanted to ask you, Alec, the way that the film starts, and I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, yeah, all right. There's a lot of young kids, and they seem to be, in their youth, and they're driving down. They're in a car, and they seem to be like on some kind of trip. But what are your thoughts as the movie starts?
Even before that, I was really paying attention to every little thing, and the
Mhm.
radio, or, because they have that whole thing where they're talking about the graves getting dug up before you even meet the kids, and you've got that brilliant narration, which was done by, like, a 25-year-old, which you hear that voice, and you're like, "This guy's voice is epic," but
Oh, fun
anyways,
fact: the guy
so
that made the opening titles, he was paid with a marijuana joint.
Oh, the
boom.
guy who narrated
Yeah,
the opening?
Yeah,
I
John
thought I
Larroquette.
heard that. Is that true that he was paid by a single joint to
yeah,
do that?
that's what I read on. That's what I read online. But
He was like 24 as his first role, so you never know. But, if you listen to the radio in the beginning, as the opening credits are having, it's that red screen, it's saying the director and all the actors and stuff like that. All they're talking about is horrible things happening. They're talking about this building collapsing and killing 29 people. They're talking about people getting dug up in Texas, but they go from Texas to San Francisco to Atlanta, and they're just talking about murder happening all over the country, and they're talking about what's happening here. So
Mhm.
and the first shot is the armadillo dead, right as it pulls up. Everything is death. The town is a slaughterhouse town that's just all about killing. These people are the remnants of an old world, it feels like. I don't There's so much
So
here.
so to piggyback on you, Alec, the point of this, the start of this movie is Sally, who's the main girl who survives at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Her brother Franklin is the one who's in the wheelchair, and she's with a bunch of friends. She's going to check out her grandfather's grave because apparently there's all these reports on the radio of vandalism and grave robbing and people stealing parts. So they're going out to see her grandfather's grave.
Mhm.
So you got that thing right there that ties into the whole what's going on. They pick up a hitchhiker who was the grave robber.
Yeah.
But the end of the movie, you meet the other grandfather of the
yeah,
Sawyer family, and they mention that he was the best killer in town. Did he kill her grandpa?
wow. Uh,
Did you ever put that together? Because I put that
I
together just today for the
That's a
first time.
great connection discovery. I never put that together.
Because if he worked in the slaughterhouse in that area, it sounds like that whole town was worked in that slaughterhouse. Another cool point of this movie is the industrial change in technology.
Mhm.
The whole time the kid's talking to the hitchhiker, no, the gun's not good. The air gun, the gun's not good. The hammer does it better. They're used to the past and how things were done in the past. They don't like the new technology because it ran the Sawyer family out of the slaughterhouse. So they go into killing humans
And killing humans with knives with that old fashioned way
and
by cutting. There's a whole point of like the slaughter of the
slaughter.
living
Yeah, yeah.
animals by knives, and there aren't any guns.
There's a chainsaw, but that still could be not new technology, I think. That's more old,
Still, I would
old saws. And also it's the Sawyer family. What's in that last name is Saw.
Think
So,
about this though. So you guys are talking about the guns and all that stuff that's like new technology. I don't think it's about the gun itself. I think it's about because they're saying it's better to hit the cattle with the hammers. It's better to really like
mhm.
make sure they sort of suffer as they die. I don't think the chainsaw is just as good. That'll make them suffer too. If they use
Yeah.
a gun like the air gun, they'll die too fast. I think it's about the slow death to these people.
well,
I,
I think that's
yeah.
one of
Could be. I think it's more they're upset that their way of life has been ruined
Oh
by
yeah,
the
for sure.
by
That
the industrialization of slaughterhouses, which
yeah.
meat packing
Starting
facilities.
tomorrow, I'm going to be a vegetarian.
too.
That's another thing about this movie, dude. It's very pro vegetarian and anti meat for sure.
think it's anti-factory farming.
Right, right.
I don't know if it's necessarily anti, like, meat eating,
You
but
get I get that point though,
Right.
Joey. Like,
You
yeah.
know, the mass, you know, production of meat and whatnot. And I was going to ask you guys just like your favorite scene, you know, because there's so many disturbing scenes and it's so uncomfortable. And to speak off Alec's point, it makes you feel so uncomfortable. And I mean, that's clearly intentional. Like some of the scenes are long dated to make you feel uncomfortable. But I was just going to ask you guys like your
Mm,
favorite scene.
My favorite, I mean, I guess just thinking about this scene is it might not be my favorite scene, but the dinner table scene with the grandpa and
ugh.
drinking the blood, it's crazy. But that scene, apparently, it was during the daytime, blacked out all the curtains. It was apparently 125 degrees on
It
that
was,
set. And the guy who played John Duggan, he was the guy who was in the grandpa costume. He was younger than, I think he was in his 30s, but he said filming that scene was the worst time in my life, and I have been to Vietnam.
my dear
Ah,
Lord.
Yeah, that says a lot right there about how notoriously hard it was to shoot this in the
Yeah.
Texas heat with rotting meat, with raw. Oh,
And
dude.
just imagine the
Oh,
smell and the odor. And but you know what? It gave that authentic kind of look and feel to it. Um,
Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface, had only one shirt that whole time. He was told not to wash it, so by the end of the shoot, apparently no one could
the,
stand next to him for more than a
the
minute.
dude, the
Like,
actor who played Leatherface, he had one shirt.
Gunnar Hansen, yeah, and they were like, "Don't wash it because you'll ruin the dye and stuff." So he'd wear it for, I think it was 4 straight weeks,
oh my god, and they're in Texas.
and 12 hours a day in the heat, dude. Screw that.
Well, they mention, the heat in the, radios, they're like, "It's 96 degrees." That's at night. They say that, and I'm just like, "Oh my
You
god."
can see everyone in the car. They have
Yeah,
sweat
real
dripping down
wet.
them. Real sweat, exactly, Joe. Like it was not cool. No one had AC.
So
It
these
was
kids, I
bad.
mean, most of the crew was student filmmakers, right? I
I don't know.
I think they
That I
were
don't
really
know.
young. I think they were like right out of school or what have you. I mean, the budget was like $300,000 or something like that. But I remember I watched it again. Some of those shots were really friggin' cool, man. Like my favorite shot was
Yeah.
right when Kirk gets killed. You got Pam. Pam is super hot. There's a shot of her on the swing or the bench or what have you, and she's calling for Kirk. She's like, Kirk, 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 where are you? And the shot is right behind her, and it's like right on her ass, and it follows her up towards the front of the house and leads her in. I mean, I don't know, man. You feel like you're watching like I don't know some Spielberg, Scorsese shit.
Oh yeah, this director is
This
no
is
joke.
really
Same director as Poltergeist. He's up there with Spielberg, especially in horror for sure.
Well, Joey, that scene that you're talking about, I that's one of the scariest things ever to me is when Kurt
dude.
gets hit and he's just having, like, a
Oh
seizure,
my god.
basically, like,
Well,
that's
yeah, I don't know if you
yeah,
guys
but
noticed that, but that kill, like the first one, when obviously the reveal of Leatherface, it's fucking terrifying and like iconic, really memorable. But there's a moment where it's so real and authentic where he trips on like this little I don't know, I guess it's kind of like a little mini ramp that goes into Leatherface's fucking lair or whatever it is. But he like trips and then looks up, and it's almost like it happens many times in the film where like the audience is surprised or like shocked, just like the actors are.
Yeah, and the door slams and it's boom. The
yeah.
music hits. It's, oof,
But,
yeah.
did you guys notice the scene where you were talking about, Joey, where the girl's walking up, to go find Kirk? The camera just so seamlessly goes under that bench and then just keeps following her, and there's no, like,
Mhm.
break, and I was like, "Either this guy's got the best quad muscles ever, or it's got I don't know how they got it."
This is before stable cams, dude.
Yeah.
Like that's very impressive to get that shot perfect
Yeah,
like they
man, and
did.
even just another comment about the filmmaking of it, like it is so unpredictable. The sequence and the
Yeah.
scenes and what's gonna happen. I found that to be a really good element of the movie too. Like it's the unpredictability.
Yeah, these teenagers, it's funny though, because all they had to do is just stop following each other. They're flies to a spider. It's just one of them goes, they get killed. The other one goes, they get killed. The other one follows, they get killed. And then they follow again. It's just if they just
Yeah.
stop, they must assume, okay, there's something wrong. 3 of them are gone for hours. But no.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel bad for that Franklin character the
Oh
most.
yeah.
I mean, obviously most of the kills are by him, or the meat hook scene is awful
He
to
may
watch
be.
too.
He may be. I'm just speaking out loud here, but maybe the most important character. Like what really stuck out to me was when in his dialogue, in his line, is that hitchhiker, the Dracula character, and when
Yeah.
that whole episode is over, there's a line by Franklin, and he says, he's thinking to himself, it must take something special, or it must take something out of you to want to cut yourself. And he's actually trying to think about it and why the Dracula hitchhiker character did it. And Kurt's like, whatever, man. Yeah, whatever, man. He's crazy. But there was something interesting about how Franklin was actually trying to get into the.
Yeah, you get a sense like, oh, this kid's on drugs or something, or
Yeah,
he's just not right in the head. It's like I think there's something else there, kind of like he's a psycho more,
what
or
was up
like
with
a
that?
killer.
Because I think that's the major theme of the movie, and you guys can tell me about this. It's like how low a human can go, dude. Because this cannibal family, they've been untouched by society. Like how
Yeah,
messed up, like the human, psyche can go.
They're also adapting too because they've got the father figure who's, like, working a gas station trying to get people to, "Oh, stick around." They're not just be like, "Leave us alone, let us on our own ways." Okay, there's that element, but there's also you are luring people in there and killing them. So these people are yeah, they're fucked on so many levels.
back to my point on Franklin, dude. That guy, poor Franklin. He's Sally's brother. Not that that's a bad thing. He's in a wheelchair. First scene is him falling down a cliff because a car passes by too fast.
Yeah.
He's the one who gets his arm cut by the hitchhiker, and you think, man, like this is pre-AIDS pandemic, so that would have added a whole nother layer 10 years later. And I hate the scene where they just leave him behind and he's just like trying to get through the house and they're just like frolicking without him. It's like, oh, come on, man, they're being really
Yeah,
shitty sister and
they
shitty
like
friends. And then he's the only one besides Leatherface who gets hit with the chainsaw.
right.
Yeah. And they make fun of him too, like, the whole time, they're kinda, like, teasing him the whole time. You're like, "What is wrong with these people? You're
They
gonna drag the car if it breaks down with your wheelchair," and they all laugh at him. It's like,
Yeah,
"You guys are fucked up too."
Yeah, poor Franklin. I feel bad for that guy
yeah.
more than anything. Like, ugh. What'd you think of the hanging bones in the house? It
Well,
reminded me of True Detective
Well,
a
dude,
little
that's
bit.
really
Like,
yeah.
I wonder
Eric,
if
that's
that.
actually really funny that you brought that up. I brought up a note, a True Detective. Like, there's a scene where the father, he's tying Sally up, and he says, "Oh, we have to go to the town next door of Childress." And Childress was the name of the killer
No
in
shit.
True
Oh,
Detective.
yeah. Yeah, Joe, you're
Uh,
totally right. That's wow. I wonder if that's a nod. Well, it's Texas. They're both kind of, like, on the Texas-Louisiana border.
Yeah, it feels like True Detective, and it also like this could have been the family that the True Detective people were after. It's like, oh man, how do you add a layer to Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Wait, what if this is just a huge, long-winded way of Matthew McConaughey justifying his appearance in The Next Generation? He's just like, "Listen, we're gonna do a really, like, loosely based sequel, guys."
Honestly, that drunk guy at the beginning who passes out in the graveyard drunk sounded like Matthew McConaughey. So maybe Matthew McConaughey started talking like Matthew McConaughey because of. Wait, isn't Matthew McConaughey in one of the Texas Chainsaw movies
That's what I
too?
just said. That's what I
Did
just
you just
said.
say that?
yeah,
Yeah, Eric, you're losing it, man. This is the
Dude,
second time
I
I've,
am,
like
I guess
that's
dude,
all
I'm
right.
missing things.
Look,
Sorry. I
even though
like
thought,
there's a lot to
wait,
cover here. Matthew McConaughey was one of the children in the original Texas Chainsaw. I'm just kidding.
he is in The Next Generation with Renee Zellweger,
oh,
and
that movie
So
is
bad.
so butt.
yeah, it's funny too, you might appreciate this, Joey. Apparently, this was before both of them, like, their big career breaks happened, and their agents were trying to bury this movie, so it came out a couple years later than it was supposed to, because the agents were like, "Listen, if this gets out, it might, like, actually hurt both of your careers because this is such a piece of
Yeah.
shit."
Yeah, dude. I mean, I haven't seen. Have you seen the remake, the 2003 one with Jessica Biel's running around in her underwear?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. What are your thoughts on
I,
that, Joe?
Never seen that, by the way.
it's not as bad as you would think. The rendition of it was pretty good. I mean, it cannot touch that first original, obviously, but it's pretty well done, dude. It's pretty well done. Like the director does his own thing, and it's really creepy, and it's not reliant on CGI. The acting is really good, but they pay a lot of homage to the first one, and they kind of let
Yeah,
themselves do their own thing. When
a
they
little
do
bit.
their own thing, it's not as good as the original. I would be interested to hear what you guys think of the 2003 version.
Let's make that a thing to put on the wheel next time, Alec. I have not seen the new Jessica Biel
I
version.
would,
Yeah,
I
I
would.
saw
Oh,
it.
you have seen it, Alec.
Yeah, I saw it. Well, I was gonna ask both of you guys too. Can you think of any horror remake before that movie?
Remake before that movie.
The original came out in '74, the remake came out in 2003. Can you think of any movie, any horror movie that's had a remake or reboot before the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 2003?
And The Thing. I mean, you can name like old movies and stuff.
That's
Okay,
well,
technically, yeah, I think you're right,
actually,
The
Alec,
Thing.
that's a really good question because every movie remake that comes in my mind that's horror is after that film.
Yeah, man. What happened, I think, was Michael Bay bought the rights to it, and his Platinum Dune company, they swept up a lot of the movies, and they started remaking them, a lot of them in the early 2000s, and this was kind of the first one to kick it off. And I remember when it came out and, Jessica Biel, you're just like, "All right,
So
obviously I'm
hot.
seeing this movie." But yeah, it's ridiculous. But you go and see this movie, and it loses the grit. It loses its grisly feel. It's too Hollywood. It's too perfect. Jessica Biel looks like she's perfect the whole movie. The shadow's too perfect. It's too well done. It's not an independent horror movie anymore.
Ooh,
Nipples on the
I
costume.
agree.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the shitty sequels and stuff like that because they're continuing the lore at least, but this one was like, all right, we're gonna try and remake it,
Big
and all
budget.
it
Big
really did,
budget it.
yeah, they just Hollywood glamorized it, and again, not complaining. Jessica Biel, just she can do no wrong. But you might like this, Eric. The guy that plays the chef or whatever, the dad is the guy from Full Metal Jacket.
Which one? Which guy from Full Metal Jacket?
The one
The
that's like, you maggots,
yeah,
Oh, yeah, he just
the
passed
lieutenant.
away a couple months ago, right? The Vietnam.
years ago.
No, that's awesome.
He-
He was. He's in
Yeah,
it. Oh man,
he's in the sequels too. There's like three of them, and
the
he's
Sarge.
actually in it. Yeah,
What'd you guys think of the camera noises? Anything you get from that? Like, "Bing." It has that
yeah.
slaughterhouse feel. You know, when like you
yeah,
you use a buzz saw
dude. I mean, that's the only
sound
sound
effects.
effects in it. There's zero music, which adds to the to the movie even more. I think. Dude, I don't know. I was a big acknowledgement to the acting, dude. Like that actress that played Sally, give her a fucking Oscar nomination. She was screaming
Ooh,
the whole movie, dude. That end scene where the car's driving away and she's like laughing hysterically, and it's just like 10 different emotions coming out of her. I mean, that
Yeah.
was really something. Just
And then it just ends. And imagine like the theater lights come up and you're
what
just
did
like,
I just
oh my
ooh.
god, like what did I just watch?
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
Alec. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. I was just same question. The sound effects and the choice of no music in the movie. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, really quick, just what you're talking about with Sally screaming at the end. Just word for the wise to listeners who haven't seen this movie: keep the volume down low because if anyone just hears that scene with loud volume, they're gonna be like, "What in the hell are they?"
Yeah, you bring up a good point. My neighbors are probably like, what is this guy next door listening
It's
to? All day I'm
it's
listening to
yeah.
screaming and horror movies.
The sound is what makes this movie scary. It seems like it's so sort of like disjumbled a little bit. It's out of order. The way that it's shot, like it
Yeah,
just makes you feel uneasy. It's not a typical movie.
Leatherface is like gibberish. You don't understand a word he says. He's just groaning and grunting.
it's chaotic. It's a nightmare.
This movie is, I think, the number one American nightmare. It is everyone's worst case scenario of anything. The worst situation to be put in. And I think it's terrifying.
You're right, Joe. It feels like it's shot like a nightmare,
Dude,
especially that ending scene. Like it's
the
so
last
because when they're laughing and stuff at the table and there's the close up on
um,
her eyes, like that feels like a nightmare. Yeah.
in the last like I guess what half hour, 20 minutes of the movie. I can't think of the last time because I'm getting older. I've been pretty desensitized. I've seen Saw. I've seen a lot of we've all seen a lot of crazy shit online, but this film still stands at the top. The last 20 minutes, half hour, I'm literally praying that this poor girl gets away. She's fucking running, screaming her head off.
And that truck
Well,
driver is like, "Oh, I should have never stopped." The guy's like, "What the hell? I told myself I'd get out of Texas, and here I am."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. They should have just done a sequel where it immediately picks up with him.
yeah, he's we don't know what happens to him. Obviously, he's in trouble. Like at the end of the
He just
movie,
yeah.
that wrench at Leatherface's face.
that was awesome. What a direct hit.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's two scenes that I wanted to ask you guys about that really I think kind of go into the psychology of Leatherface a little bit is after he kills the third guy, I can't remember his name, Jerry.
Jerry, yeah,
After he kills that, he immediately just kills him and then runs to the window and kind of grabs his head and he drops the hammer. And you're like, he's probably like, what the fuck is going on? Where are these kids coming from? Like, why are all these people coming in here? And he's just like, I don't want to keep doing this. Like, you see it kind of in him for a
wow.
second.
Like he has a reaction that's
You
not
remember,
like a
you
what we'd see in a normal horror movie, I
remember- do
guess.
you remember that reaction, that moment, Eric?
No, I
I
don't. I
see.
don't off the top of my
I
head.
do, and I actually didn't give it that much depth until Alec had mentioned it. But Alec, I really like that thought though, and I think with that moment, that's just another like paintbrush to how like brilliant the movie is. Like, yeah, I just thought that he was getting really frustrated too. Like he didn't want any of that to be happening.
Well, then you see at the dinner table scene, he's definitely the submissive one in the entire relationship. So it to me, it feels like Leatherface doesn't necessarily want to be doing what he's doing just because of that scene where you see this humanity in him is like, I'm just mercilessly killing people. And I don't know. I feel like it's all he knows. So he doesn't really have a lot of options.
Well, maybe he's just so used to his slaughterhouse being like one or two people, and now it's like totally full, and he's like freaking out. There's so much meat now in his slaughterhouse. Who knows?
Can't believe we're actually trying to give empathy to the
Yeah, dude,
worst.
this movie's a mess of
It's fucking
disturbing.
The second thing I want to ask you guys too, though, is when Sally or whatever runs into the house and she gets there for the first time and she runs up to the grandpa, just imagine how fucked up that scene is just from a psychological point. There's just this dude sitting in a room by himself and he's just looking at this old dead lady and he's just literally sitting there and he's not expecting Sally to come up there. Like, what's going on before she goes in there?
But just to add to that point, guys, this is based on a true story.
Very loosely.
Well, the story was what was his name? Edward Gein, was it?
Yeah.
They found dead bodies in his house, and they were dressed up to be alive, and he kept them. There's a special name for people who do that, but
He was the Wisconsin grave robber killer, and Psycho's also based off of him too. Psycho
And
took a lot from him.
Hannibal or Buffalo Bill.
so that
Right.
grandfather character that Alec was talking about, that's a true story. You know, the element of that is very true. I mean, yeah, Alec, fucking terrifying, dude.
Yeah, there's just so many there's so many and
Mm.
and then right when they're gonna kill Sally at the end and they all kinda leave for a second, and if the camera's just on her and all we're hearing is whatever they're doing in other rooms, and we're not seeing anything but her. So all we're doing is just left with her and the sounds, and you're just like, "Oh, this movie."
It's intensely disturbing. That's the way
Running
I describe it.
running through the woods and like getting stabbed by all the fucking thorns and
Ugh,
bushes, and the guy's he's chasing you, and you're in the dark.
yeah. I remember it made me not wanna go to Texas when I was a kid.
Yeah, after I was done, I was like, I just want to watch SpongeBob
Yeah,
SquarePants
fuck
for a
that,
couple
dude.
episodes. I
Dude,
was
I'm
like,
Italian from the Northeast. I'm not going anywhere. I'll go to Austin and stay in the hotel. Otherwise, I'm not going anywhere else in Texas.
But
yeah,
what if this was your dad's house? It's Franklin's house.
it's Franklin. Come on, cousin Franklin, Joey.
I don't know, fat boy.
I love too, his first name is Franklin. It's like, "Yeah, we're going to the Franklin house." So is his name fucking Franklin?
He was like, "My father owns it. We're going to see him."
Yeah, and what happened to that house? It's all fucked up and destroyed, and they're, like, just laughing. They're like, "I used to paint these walls." Like, "What happened to that house?"
Yeah, he's like, there's the swimming pool in the back. Like,
Yeah,
so place gives me the fucking creeps, dude.
yeah, it's nasty. Well, is there, Joey, any horror movie that you've watched recently that you're like, "Dude, I love this," like a mod or anyone that you haven't seen recently that you wa
Well, I did watch The Exorcist before the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that's just a freaking masterclass.
That's a 1-2 combo right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
It's a 1-2 combo.
The Exorcist is just, I mean, on all cylinders. It's like 10, 10, 10, 10.
You know what
Couldn't
we'll do,
agree
Joey?
more.
Because we already did the Exorcist episode, but what we're definitely gonna do the series because there's so many movies. We'll get you in for one of those if you wanna jump in on an Exorcist sequel episode.
Yes, call me, please.
Or maybe the Matthew McConaughey Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Go Longhorns.
Have
Oh,
you
yeah.
seen me go Longhorn? Have you seen me in Texas Chainsaw Part 3? All right. Like,
No,
no,
I bet that has some kind of tie to his True Detective. You know,
Yeah.
I'm seeing all the hanging stuff, and it just brought me like, man, this reminds me of True Detective a little bit.
maybe it's a direct paying homage to the character, but
Could be.
yeah, man, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, Eric, go ahead and give that wheel a spin.
All right, spinning the wheel of horror.
Ooh,
Oh, man. I love it if you
Spooky.
get a chainsaw to rev up instead of the wheel spinning.
I'm really scared right now, dude.
The Fog.
Whoa! Wait a
John
minute.
Carpenter's The Fog.
Wait,
Ooh.
the most recent, the 2003.
Hell no, Joey. Have you seen that? That's horrible.
Nope.
Wait a minute. Time out. Frank Daramont's The Fog.
No,
John Carpenter's. The
Oh.
one with the guy from Smallville. You talking about?
I saw the most recent one, Frank Darabont. I didn't see the original.
Oh,
No.
hell no, Joe. It's gotta. Well, actually, we'll talk about it tomorrow.
But yeah.
Well,
David.
thank you guys so much for listening in today. Joey, thank you so much. You were an awesome guest.
Thank you guys for having me. It was awesome.
All right, man. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow for The Fog.
Woo!